This program is brought to you by Tab. Long may we play.
I'm Caroline Searcy. Welcome to the first edition of Thoroughbreds Are Go, a program aimed at promoting the fabulous athleticism of the thoroughbred, encourage the equestrian world to take them on as their go-to horse and educate them on their best care. Plus, all-important information for owners, trainers and breeders about the best way to safely rehome your thoroughbred. In this first episode, we visit World Cup show jumper Krissy Harris and learn about her Thoroughbred Sport Horse Association, which has already garnered great support from the racing industry, rewarding riders taking on thoroughbreds with great prizes in a series of thoroughbred classes around New South Wales. And we visit one of the most experienced retrainers in Australia, Scott Brodie, and his Thoroughbred Aftercare and Retraining Centre to hear more on what you need to know if you are rehoming or taking on a thoroughbred. Plus Arrowfield stud Strapper's stories and a story from Victoria and Philip Campbell's Blue Gum Farm about a 20-year-old Herbert Power Stakes winner by Zabeel and the important role of a nanny for retired racehorses and broodmares around Australia. Krissy Harris is well known in equestrian circles for her success at World Cup and World Championship level in show jumping, in particular with her Australian thoroughbred Mr Popeye. Krissy's had great support from the racing and breeding industry for her brainchild Thoroughbred Sport Horse Association, which rewards riders at thoroughbred-only classes around New South Wales. I caught up with Krissy recently to hear more about TSHA and how it operates, and was also lucky enough to hear from Rod Brown, who's one of the coaching squad for the Australian equestrian team heading to the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games.
Thoroughbreds are the most amazing animals. I had this fabulous little horse called Mr Popeye. His racing name was Our Solo Man, bred by John Singleton, and he was unbelievable. He had so much scope, he had so much power, and he won a whole heap of Grand Prix in Australia for me, a couple of World Cups here, went to the World Cup final to represent our country, and I was outridden because I was a very novice at that level, but I was never out-horsed. He was unbelievable. So he really single-handedly started my passion for Grand Prix jumping thoroughbreds.
And it is a passion that, you know, once people ride these horses and get involved with them, you know, they're addictive, aren't they?
Look, they're very addictive, and even though when they come off the track it's their second career, I find that because I suppose I grew up with them, I find them very easy to understand. And you know quite soon if they're going to be any good or not. But the main thing every thoroughbred can do is canter.
For the elite, I mean, these horses are really, you know, they always were the go-to horse within Australia and around the world. But we really need to encourage people to believe that they can compete at the highest level.
Look, they totally can. Before warm bloods became very, very fashionable, we had some really lovely thoroughbreds in this country that we were selling in the 90s, and they were selling as jumping horses all around the world. I think we sold 3 or 4 of them for over the $1 million+ mark. Not me personally, unfortunately. But you know, that showed how good our horses were, and they were sold all around the world, not just in Australia. So I would love to get back there again.
And it does start at grassroots, doesn't it? I mean, with Thoroughbred Sport Horse Association, you know, explain a bit about that, because you are actually trying to really have, you know, people coming and getting rewarded if they take on the thoroughbred by great prize money at the shows in particular. And obviously that, you know, there's so much recognition when you have a good thoroughbred. Everyone seems to know about it.
In the old days, we used to go through, they had a thing called the size annual, and it would come out, and so everybody who had a decent jumping horse, we'd run up and say, right, what's its bloodline? And then you'd find it out, and then you'd go back to your size, and it would generally go back to Grosvenor's, Tristram's. Chris Chug had some terrific ones, and they were Navy SEAL, and it went back to some super horses. Scandal was by ruling, so then all of us ran around buying ruling horses. So we had this real thing going where, yes, we wanted thoroughbreds, but then we got a little bit, especially at the top end, a little bit particular, and we wanted certain bloodlines. So Tristram's really jumped. Problem with that is they were so sought after that unless they were dreadfully slow geldings, we wouldn't get them.
Well, that'll be the same now descending through, you know, down to Pierrot. Those sorts of horses are hard to come by, but as geldings, they're still available. I mean, what would you say to somebody that is wanting to take on a thoroughbred and actually, you know, get to a more elite level if they hadn't had them before?
I think you need to go back to the older style trainers like Rod Brown, who represented Australia in Seoul Olympics on a thoroughbred, Ronnie Easy, Jamie Coleman, they represented Australia at the Sydney Olympics in 2000 on thoroughbreds. And I think if you go to somebody who started thoroughbreds previously and has taken them to that level, they'll give you a hell of a helping hand.
I think looking at him, to me, he's a safe bet to buy, you know, if you've got the horse off the track. He's quite a good looking horse. He's a horse that if he doesn't jump is going to make someone, you know, a show hunter or something like that. For me, he's a little bit short in the gaskin behind. I like a long, strong gaskin behind, but I've seen very good jumpers that haven't had that too. But in general, I think he looks a safe bet. He's got nice legs. I think under saddle he'll have a nice look about him. If he doesn't make a super show jumper, he's going to make someone a lovely show hunter, maybe a bit of dressage, and maybe he's a good jumper that might go eventing too. So yeah, all in all, the appeal of him is quite nice. Well, this horse is more my style of thoroughbred. He's a little taller, leggier. He looks like a jumper. He mightn't have the appeal of that one to the general public, but I think as a jumper, this is more the style of scopy looking, a little bit of length of rein, good legs, good length of back, nice slopey rump on him. He looks like a jumper to me. I'd take a gamble on him and give him a go for sure. He's just not long off the track, so he's not muscled up for our game yet. But the first thing that caught my eye was the length of his gaskin. He's got a nice length of gaskin. I would imagine he'd have a good propulsion, you know, from those gaskins. And he's going to build up in the neck and whatever, but I quite like him as a jumper type. Yeah, I think, you know, give him 6 months of flat work and muscle him up, he's going to look a nice horse, and I would say, I would be surprised if he didn't have a good canter. The racing has changed a bit from my day when I was getting thoroughbreds. We had access to a lot of bigger, staying, scopier type horses. And the other thing I think we all have to think about is, I see people riding thoroughbreds at the shows and they just hool them around and whatever, treating them a bit like, for our sport, a second citizen. I think if people start to think of them like I thought of them and still think of them, they're as first-class citizen as anyone. They need the training. They train like any other horse. And I think if people took it, and with these classes that are on now, hopefully that's going to encourage that, because there's so many thoroughbreds out there that are, you know, finished their career and sound and good lookers and perhaps all the right attributes, that if people started to take them seriously again, like we did, there'd be some nice horses there.
So we've been running for over a year now. We've got 450 horses on our books. So all you have to do is have a thoroughbred, doesn't even have to have raced. Anything that's got thoroughbred papers you can register with us, and we ask a licence fee from the equestrian competitors, and that allows them to enter our classes, and we have classes all over the east coast of Australia.
So where to now for Thoroughbred Sport Horse?
Well, we are really excited this year because we are now branching out into hacking and show horse, and we're sponsoring our first show with our classes at Hawkesbury Show. So onwards and upwards, and we're looking forward to doing eventing and anything else that we can get into that helps the thoroughbreds.
Some great work there, encouraging the uptake of our beautiful thoroughbreds in the equestrian world by Krissy and her team. Coming up after the break on Thoroughbreds Are Go, a 20-year-old former group race winner showing the work of a nanny, a hugely important role for retired thoroughbreds at studs around Australia. And the popular Scott Brodie educating horses and their new riders, ensuring the best rehoming outcome for both.